Everyone, hi, welcome again to our second webcast series. This time around, myself and Karthik, we have an esteemed guest. I don't think he needs any introductions, but for the sake of it, okay, we are happy to have with us today in this second series, Mr. Hanif Abdul Rahman, our very first principal master teacher from PESTA. Let's welcome him. Yay! All right, Hanif, thank you so much for joining us for today's session.
My pleasure, certainly my pleasure.
Yeah. All right, I think we are really happy to have you here, and we know that this is our webcast series. We want to get to know, our esteemed practitioners in our fraternity. I think you have done a lot for the fraternity. Myself, personally, I've been a beneficiary of his mentoring, his leadership, his guidance, and most importantly, his friendship. Right? So I think you want to get to know, I think the fraternity wants to ask him a lot of questions beyond the professional, like who is Hanif? Hanif, when he appears, like, oh, Hanif is here, Yeah, so, but who is Hanif? What was he like as a student? What were his motivations? What inspires him? What makes him, stay awake at night, So those kind of things, and what he has for us in the future. His vision, his influences, and things like that, right? Okay, so are we ready?
Yeah, actually there's a connection between you and our last guest, Jiayi, right? Maybe we can start from there lah. That's some connection. I heard he's your army buddy. I don't have anything to share.
Okay, firstly, once again, thanks very much for having me here for this series. I think it's a good way for us at PESTA, establishing, maintaining, and as an outreach for us to engage our PE fraternity, right? So coming back to your intro, Nas, you mentioned about, you repeated the word esteem a couple of times. That gives me a lot of pressure. I'm just a normal human being. In a way to get us started this session, Karthik, you mentioned about our last guest for this series, Jiayi. So Jiayi and I, we went back quite a long time back. We were in the same platoon for our BMT, and obviously we don't know each other before that. But as for our male PE teachers watching this, BMT is usually one of the most lasting kind of experience, the most lasting kind of memory. And Jiayi and I, we were together. Charlie Company, 3 BTS, Platoon 10, and we were together. And that was when we started realizing that, hey, we were both going to become PE teachers. And it was through one of those conversations and through one of those games, in BMT we have inter-platoon football matches, inter-company and all things like that. And we realized that, hey, we had a bit of this kind of a knack on playing sports, playing football at that time, and that's where we realized. And lo and behold, we were classmates in the then School of PE in NIE. That was in 94 till 98, and then our path kind of crisscrossed a little bit here and there. Obviously, he went the academic route. I went to PESTA and where I am right now, and even till now, we've got things going on. We collaborated on, we are going to embark on a research, hopefully very soon, something on adaptability and adaptive thinking among PE teachers here. Yeah. So that's kind of my background, how Jiayi's path and my path kind of reconnect, and keep connecting over time. Yeah.
Okay, Hanif, I think you and I also we have a link, so to speak, all the way to primary school, only primary, and then of course you went on to RI, okay, and then VJC and things like that, So as a student, can you just describe to us, what were you like as a student? What were your motivations? How do you become who you are today, Yeah.
As a student, okay. I was an introvert. I am still an introvert. Hey, why are you laughing? Introvert by nature, extrovert by force. Okay, anyway. I wouldn't say I'm very sociable, very outgoing, naturally as a person. So as a student, I would think I'm quite serious. I would think yeah, as I said, an introvert. And but one thing for sure, which is common among many PE teachers, I would assume, is the love for sports. Yeah. So we were teammates in football, Fowley School, the king of
Izun.
Izon. Yeah. Okay. So that in addition to playing football in primary school, I was also playing sepak takraw for school. I was also in track and field. I was a long jumper. I was a sprinter in school. And for inter-house games, I was playing basketball for the inter-house. I was in greenhouse then. So that love for sports and that versatility, right? The adaptability and that exploration, that kind of a wanting to do more, experience more, try out more. I think that's the kind of thing that's the kind of disposition that I perhaps naturally might have in me. And that kind of continue even till secondary school. So in secondary school, that's when I picked up rugby, where I later kind of play to a fairly high level. So in addition to playing rugby for my secondary school, I was also playing football and sepak takraw. During my free time, I picked up squash in when I was in secondary school, and that versatility also kind of spill over for me in some of the other aspect of my school life. So I was also in the surprise historical and geographical society. And I was the chairman of the Malay Cultural Club as well. So it was a kind of a vast experience that I kind of enjoy that schooling days, right? Yeah. And of course in JC then it was rugby and football at the same time. Yeah.
But how do you know that I'm gonna be a teacher? What was the defining moment that made you decide that?
Okay. A bit by accident. A bit by accident. Why do I say by accident? Because I was indoctrinated. I was kind of a prime to be an engineer. I think those were the days, in the 80s where I mean, if you look at the Singapore kind of economic kind of a landscape and all that, engineering seems to be the prime kind of a profession then. So my family kind of told me that, hey, okay, this is where you might want to consider going. My father is also in the civil engineering kind of line. So I was kind of priming myself. Okay, my parents want me to become an engineer. Okay, I will try to be an engineer lah. But lo and behold, the A-level result not quite there lah. The A-level result not quite there. And I could
because of your school life.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure school life, rugby, or I don't know. Some oops. So anyway, so the result wasn't quite fantastic for me to get into then among the engineering strands, the triple E, electronics and electrical engineering seems to be the most prized of the engineering line. And with my result, I wasn't going to get a place there. So what do? So I look back. I've always enjoyed sports, right? As I mentioned earlier. And while waiting for my A-level result, I actually did relief teaching. So in VJC. So I was relief teaching for a term because, typically A-level results then about March thereabout. Yeah. So I was relief teaching for a term in VJC. I was also coaching. I was PE. Yeah, PE. I've got a kind of a good. I was a student at VJC. I've got a good kind of a relationship with the PE department there, and because I was waiting for NS enlistment, that was when I was approached that, hey, would you want to consider relief teaching? So to kind of put the two things together with the A-level result not too favorable to be in engineering, with my experience as a relief teacher and also coaching the VJC rugby team then, because VJC had a rugby team then. I love that job. I really love it. So that was kind of a decider that okay, PE teacher, right? So the typical assumption is no need to mark. Typical, I would say at that point of time. The typical assumption is okay, I can play sports every day. I can be in the outdoor every day, and I'm gonna enjoy life because I'm a sportsman. So with that kind of assumption at that point of time, okay, the application for the PE, the degree program, the BA BSc program was kind of submitted, and yeah, and the interview and all that selection came about. And it was during the NS, my BMT with Jiayi, that was at our PPT, our interview. So Jiayi and I on a separate slot, we took time out from camp to attend, and then we kind of share our own experiences with each other. Yeah.
Interesting journey. Yeah.
Actually, I also, I also did engineering, so it wasn't, it's not just in the 80s, lah, even when
So you did engineering, so you're the smart one.
So I did engineering, then similar path, I think I did relief teaching as well. Then after through relief teaching, then I realized that, actually, engineering is not for me. It was very, very difficult times in uni. Then relief teaching gave me some joy lah. Yeah, so went into teaching. Yeah, with similar thoughts, no?
Yeah.
I want to play sports.
I also went into engineering.
Oh, you also?
I went to poly, against, of course, better advice. I went to poly, and then I took electrical engineering, electronics engineering. Actually, by the second year, I lost all interest. So, but third year, I had to repeat because of injury, and I did well. So, hey, not too bad, I repeated 1 year, I did well. So, but lo and behold, it wasn't for me, lah. Yeah. So I thought, let's do something else. So.
Something in common, huh?
Yes, yes, yeah. Poly, engineering, and then NIE, of course. Yeah, I think for you, Hanif, the first time, of course, we were primary schoolmates, but I think after that, we lost contact because you are smarter than me. So, basically, I only found you again, so-called, when I was in, I think, the second year in NIE, and then you gave us a speech on SOA. I think it was one of the SOA event in Sentosa. Okay, where you you inspired us with your.
What is SOA?
SOA, okay, Singapore Olympic Academy. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's something that maybe many people do not know. Many of our fraternity do not know that you have been to Greece, Athens, to do something there. Can you share with us about that?
I didn't know that. You recall that
Yes,
you never told me about that
I was there,
before.
second year Sentosa, and that's where Hanif. And I think you also, an article about you was published in one of the PE magazines.
Okay,
recall.
right, okay. Okay, that's Singapore Olympic Academy. It was then the academy was housed under SPE, the then SPE, and then when SPE moved over to fall under the umbrella of NIE NTU with PESS, right? Then it was still up and running, and we used to have annual Singapore Olympic Academy sessions. So the sessions are, as kind of the name suggests, is to champion Olympism and the values of Olympic education, the ethos of Olympism, understanding the history of the Olympic movement, and so on. It was actually how I kind of had a foray into that at the end of my third year in the degree program in the then SPE, right? There was kind of an open application for soon to be final year students to apply to go to Greece, where the International Olympic Academy is housed in Olympia, which is just off the original, the site of the first Olympics, and of course representing Singapore as an international delegate. And typically we would send two final year students to go, and I applied, and then also partly because I was kind of majoring in sociology in sports. That was one of the love that I kind of discovered late in my kind of academic life, that at that point of time. So and coming back from, of course, I spent I think it was about 3 weeks in Greece. So 2 weeks of that the IOA session where there were games and there was interaction, socialization. But above all, it was an exchange of mindsets and ideas and perspectives across the world. So I remember my roommate, initially when we were in Athens itself, my roommate was a Brazilian, and we were both socio kind of major, and we had a good time exchanging thoughts on sociology in sports in Brazil, and then I was talking about about nationalism and patriotism, because that was kind of my pet kind of interest at that point of time in the Singapore context. And then once we moved over to Olympia itself, it was a slightly bigger room. So we got, I remember there was one, my roommate was from Denmark. Yeah, so a lot of exchanges. Coming back to Singapore, then it's about giving back to the fraternity. As alumni of the IOA, we led certain segments of the SOA sessions. I think that was probably something, and then of course wrote articles about the values of Olympism and all that. Yeah, so that's kind of the reason why I went that way in a way, and then continue for a couple of years annually to kind of give a service to the fraternity. Yeah, and it all started with sociology. Yeah, and I mentioned earlier, kind of a late start because as I shared earlier, primed to do engineering, right? So I was like doing physics, chem, CMATs, then CMATs in A levels and that's very engineering like. And when I started my first year in the BSc program at SPE, was majoring in physics and of course PE. Second year physics, and then typically people who did physics would do biomech or motor studies and all that. But I suddenly discovered that enough of all these sciences. I kind of like sociology, understanding human behavior, making meaning for myself, sense making, and then meaning making, and looking at phenomenon and all that, and how that kind of impact the kind of pedagogy, the kind of constructivist approach to teaching. Right now, I mean, some years later, I kind of discovered that term as well. So that gave me the love into inquiring more into sociology, human behavior, and then later on, pedagogically, it's about constructivist approach to teaching.
You know, when we reconnected, right, it's through your son lah, because your son went to Beacon. I was at Beacon as well, the future school. And that's when I think we restarted our professional connection, through the PAM Research.
Yes,
so since then, I think I see that you are a strong advocate of values, character development, in PE especially. What drove you into looking into that deeper? Any past experiences that tell you, hey, I want to go into this?
The PAM Research was one of I recall that was in fact my very first project in PESTA, a beginning master teacher, 2012, 2013, yes, right? Yeah. What made me go into that line? I mentioned earlier about that constructivist approach to teaching, and that term was I was introduced to that term when I did my masters. Started in 2002, almost 20 years ago. Yeah, so I was introduced to that term as a whole body of understanding the kind of pedagogy, the kind of meaning making. That learning is not downloading of thoughts, ideas, or philosophy on the part of the teacher. Learning is, from the constructivist approach, learning is about students making meaning, constructing meaning for themselves, and layering over whatever experiences that they have at this point in time. So with that kind of introduction, I'm sold to that idea, because then I believe that this sits in very well with me, because I love sociology in sports, kind of applied sociology in sports, and it's about meaning making. And now constructivist is also about meaning making. So I could kind of draw the line and put those two together. And part of that meaning making to me is about students making a bigger, greater meaning to PE beyond just learning the psychomotor, the skills, and being able to enact whatever skills. Therein lies a need to develop, hold a certain set of values. So that PAM Research is about understanding where does the affective domain, how can we codify the affective domain. And at that point of time, it was still kind of iffy, while we all believe that no, PE develops character, PE develops teamwork, PE develops a certain value and set of values. Have we kind of codified what sort of pedagogy? Have we kind of codified what exactly do we mean by some of this? It was still quite iffy at that point of time. So I thought that, hey, I think this is where I want to go. I think this is where I feel that the fraternity might benefit from some clarity of the effective domain. So it's not just, typically at that point of time, lesson objective, right? You must have the psychomotor, cognitive, effective domain, and the effective domain. By the end of the lesson, students should be able to enjoy the lesson. Okay, I cringe when I see that. Yeah, we want the students to enjoy, but that might be the enjoyment is a bigger thing. It's not just it shouldn't just be with the effective domain. So something greater has got to be codified in there. Yeah.
So without lecturing lah, okay, would you be able to explain simply what was the findings like?
So the findings, one of the things that we drew from the PAM research, it was fairly long, 2 years to be exact. It was 2 years looking at a group of teachers teaching the same group of students, journeying. So it's almost like ethnographical in a slightly a short term ethnographical. So one of the finding is about teacher belief. So one of the things that we realized that many teachers, in fact all the participants of the research at that point of time, stated that they all believe in the effective domain. They all believe the values and character development in PE. However, not all of them mentioned that they believe that students can be developed. Some of them say that, oh no, my students like that, cannot lah. And we saw that seemingly two groups of teachers, right? The teachers who believe in character development but yet don't quite believe that the students can be developed. Their lessons were very teacher directed. Their lessons were very teacher centered and all that. So very little of that student empowerment that we saw in the other group. But thankfully, over that whole 2 years period, through some intervention, we managed to shift the teacher belief, and then we saw wonderful outcome. So that was, to me, if two of the greatest outcome from that research. One is that teacher belief. So the belief has got to be there, the belief that students want to and can learn. I mean, that's what the STP, Singapore Curriculum Philosophy, now states, right? We believe that students want to and can learn. So if we believe as teachers that students can be developed, our pedagogy will shift to allow more for the empowerment. And the second biggest outcome from that research is about being explicit, being intentional. So it's not just the good old teachable moment. We've heard that, and it's not that it's not good. Teachable moment is still a powerful pedagogical tool, strategy, whatever you want to call that. But what else? So through that research, we discovered a few other effective learning opportunity. One of them being teachable moment, but there were also 4 others that we can help teachers understand to be intentional with what they want to do, which is about development of character and values in students. So in a nutshell, those were the two of the biggest kind of outcome from that research.
Yeah, I was involved in that research, and
you could give a first-hand account to that.
It was very rigorous, I think by then I was in my 11th or 10th year of teaching, and it was quite career-changing because I had Ralph Pim, I had Julius Ring coming in to observe my lesson. I mean, who am I, to do all that? So, but more importantly is the learning that I got. I had to unlearn whatever I've learned before, and then really put myself as a BT, and then to accept their feedback, to see how my students learn. For the first time in that one decade of career, I was given very good feedback about my teaching, and specifically about values. Something that I think I resonate with you in terms of in PE, there's just more than just psychomotor or cognitive. You have to have that values.
So what was like Nasrun before the PAM?
Okay.
Was
Nasrun before was what he has first step, second step, third step, like that lah. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Okay, I think there's a place for that. Okay, but I think there's always this dissonance line, that there must be more than that lah. And I think when it comes to CCA, right? I because it's my CCA, my students, right? So I could wear a different hat. So I felt, why can't I wear the same hat during PE lesson as well, you know? Why do I just inspire them during CCA, but not during PE, you know? So that dissonance made me open to, you know, accepting the PAM Research to be a participant as well. Yeah.
To me, then the other kind of outcome of that research, right, is it enables, or it gives us an understanding, us as in the researchers, an understanding of how can we make the affective domain more specific. And it was also very timely, because if you recall the current syllabus that we have at this point of time, which is the 2014 version of the syllabus, it was also timely that the syllabus was at its conception at that time, and we wanted to change the future of PE in Singapore. Right, there was a big shift. Viewers here, if you recall, for those of us who have been in service longer and you went through that change, you realize that it was quite a conceptual change as far as the psychomotor and the cognitive is concerned, especially at primary school. But the other big change was the articulation of the affective domain, which was not quite mentioned in any of the previous syllabus. So for the first time in history, it was also timely, SG50 then. So it's like a gift to the nation, SG50, and the syllabus now states very clearly what do we mean by respect, responsibility, resilience, integrity, care and harmony, unpack, understand, observe through the development of social emotional competencies and the emerging 21st century competencies. And that was a result of what we understood from the PAM research, in the need to ensure that teachers understand, codify practice, codify learning outcomes, and that was, lo and behold, myself leading a group of officers from PESTA, from PSOP, PSOEB, where we kind of put those outcomes together. And looking back, 2014, now almost 10 years, and the new syllabus is coming on board very shortly, and how we have grown over that whole period. And I'm happy that, we are moving, not as much as I was hoping, but we are moving closer, and people are more, they are clearer with the affective domain. Unlike before, it was just by the end of the lessons, students should be able to enjoy the lesson, that kind of a motherhood statement.
If you have one statement to remind teachers about the importance of values, you know, just to wrap up this particular segment, what would that be?
Statement, important of values.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Important of values. Values drives behavior. So I think values drive behavior. The clearer we are with our value, that means the clearer we are to understanding ourselves, that will drive a certain behavior, right? So as teachers, from a teacher's perspective, the clearer you are in trying to achieve your affective domain of values, right, outcome in your teaching, the more intentional you are in adopting certain approaches and all that, the clearer their students will be, the better they will learn. From a student's perspective, the more they understand and they believe in those kind of values that they've been led to experience through the lesson, hopefully then it will be a way of life for them to behave as part of their character beyond the school. There are of course models. Let's say, for example, the Krathwohl taxonomy, as kind of we can use that as a frame for formative assessment. You can also look at it as developmental stages for values in development. In the end, at the very peak of the Krathwohl taxonomy is characterization. That's the way of life. So the clearer we are with the values, it will drive a certain behavior, which will become our character. Yeah.
I asked for one statement, you give me 10 statements. Okay, it's okay. All right.
Okay. I think, just to add on, when you asked Hanif the question, my thoughts were like, actually we are, if you see from an extrapolate bigger picture, actually we are shaping society, right? We start with individuals at a time. Then if I always feel that, what is the value of the conversation when we have the child, right? If we don't have it, what will happen? If we have it, what will happen? Then I feel that, okay, just have the conversation, and then we slowly impact one child at a time.
Yeah, one starfish at a time, right?
Yeah, starfish.
Yeah. See, think, wonder. Connect, extend, challenge. I can't think of others. Okay, but you know where I'm driving towards, right?
No.
You do not know. Okay, Karthik, do you know where I'm driving towards?
Is it MTV?
Yes, I think in a bigger scope, maybe metacognition. I think lately, if I know your work, you are foraying into that area, you know. And I think it's something that for me is quite new because seldom we think about thinking, especially in the context of PE.
Right.
You know, even though as sports people, when we play sports, thinking always occurs, you know. But what again, you know, similar to the other question just now, what drives you into looking into this area?
What drives me? I mean, partly end of PAM Research. What shall I do next? No.
Getting bored again, right?
I would say it goes back to constructivism. It goes back to understanding human behavior through my sociology, kind of a love for sociology, right? So because it's about human behavior and all that, and the PAM research, the affective domain is also about behavior. I began to think, okay, upon the completion of the research project, upon the completion of writing the syllabus, so I began to think, okay, research over, it gives us a lot of insights into what we can understand, how we can understand behavior and all that. And syllabus out, while I wouldn't say it was done and dusted, there was still a need to do some maintenance work, help to advocate the affective domain. I began to think that, okay, what more can I do? How else can I be a pathfinder to carry this responsibility as a master teacher, right? To inquire into something that perhaps the fraternity needs. I felt that at that point of time, this couple of years ago, I have the responsibility to do something and to help the fraternity. And while the psychomotor, in a way, is kind of established, right? PE teachers, not to say that it's all okay and all that, but yeah, looking at the three domains, so I felt that maybe cognitive domain can be inquired a little bit further. So we can look at cognitive domain as game strategies and all that. Yep, that's one. But if you look deeper, as I look deeper into it, maybe it's about how one think as one move. So it's about move to think to move. And you rightfully mentioned earlier, Nas, about we sometimes we don't think, we just move and all that. It might work for some of us as adults. My thought then is because we have had lots of vast experience. Children might not have those vast experience at that point of time in the PE lesson. How can we help students be more aware of their thinking process without crippling them to be very robotic? Okay, what should I do now? Okay, what next should I do? And by then, the pass has already gone. And we don't want that as well. So we don't want to have a analysis till paralysis kind of a concept in there. But it's about that awareness and growing that whole schema of thoughts, having lots and lots of neurons and all that, lots of the brain matter growing. So that was kind of my early impetus into looking at cognitive processes and then on into kind of a metacognition. Yeah. So that was kind of the early input, early thoughts that kind of sparked me in trying to inquire into this area. Yeah.
Are you bored now? Are you working on something?
Itchy, yeah.
I mean, I haven't kind of codified the all this cognitive process and all that. I think there's a lot more.
What's next?
Yeah. Nothing next yet. I'm still in that inquiry. So a couple of years ago when I started on that kind of personal inquiry into this, engaging some teachers and taking some of the existing models, and then you mentioned Seating Wonder, Connect and Challenge. Those are the thinking routines. MTV, right? You mentioned MTV, Making Thinking Visible. Ron Richard, Origin, and the team at Project Harvard Zero started all that. A lot of those resources are non-PE. I observe as I did school engagement, school support, consultancy. it has been adopted as a school-wide pedagogy. And the PE teachers are struggling because they don't see, they weren't able to find examples, resources in that area. So I thought again, okay, I need to have this responsibility to help the teachers. So I bring them on board. We have COP, Community of Practice. We have Network Learning Community. We try out ideas. We adapted some of those thinking routines and all that. So those were the early works. And I'm happy to note that many of them, the early forays, the early pioneers with me, the early adopters, they've shared at say conferences. We used to have the PE Sports, PE Sports Education PSE conference, the coming teachers conference, Excel Fest, another schools sharing. So these are, to me, good indicators that people are beginning to identify and kind of they are my fellow advocates. Yeah. So, but I said I haven't quite gotten a grip on that because one of the other thing that I kind of went into trying to understand cognitive and cognitive process, I also tried to foray into the neuroscience. Neuroscience and emerging kind of a body of knowledge in education, because we've always had educational psychology to back all our theory and understanding behavior, right? Some of these educational psychologists is about understanding patterns of behavior, and then okay, a theory is being done. Do we understand enough physiologically maybe, or do you understand enough what happened in the brain that support or even debunk some of these theories or concept? So the neuroscience, with advancement in neuroscience, it used to be you have to put on something, a big bowl with wires and all that. I mean, these days it's like a scrum cap with notes and all that, and you can send all these transmitters to your laptop, and you can understand what really happened in the brain. Not as versatile as we had hoped for. Maybe we are working towards that, the technology is moving towards that, but at least it's beginning to be available to us as PE teachers in the area of movement. So we can now have a little bit more of insight into understanding movement literacy in a way from a neuroscientific kind of a perspective. So I kind of engaged some of the researchers, scientists at NIE, the Science of Learning scientists and motor learning folks at PESS and NIE to see whether we can come up with this. And we have kind of identified certain proof of concept. I've just last week I had a meeting and I was discussing with one of the scientists there, and we are putting together kind of a research to give neuroscientific evidence to prove or maybe disprove some of these educational psychologists frameworks, theories that we have in our PE lessons. Yeah. So and all these are kind of heading into what sort of student disposition that we want in the future. You know, if the world is VUCA, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, and all this ambiguous and all that. Our students in our school right now, whether it's kindergarten, primary, secondary, JC, they're going to be in a far more VUCA future. So they need a far more adaptive thinking disposition. So can our pedagogy be geared towards that so that they are more adaptive, they are more aware of their own thinking, that metacognitive, right, moment, so that they can be not just adaptive in PE, but adaptive as a way of life. So I think this is where I'm kind of moving towards. Yeah.
How old are you? 50, right? Yeah. So,
just turned 50, yes.
yeah, right. Okay, so please lah, your retirement is 70, okay? Looking at the kind of that you do, but really, I think we are really the beneficiaries lah, okay, of your pathfinding work. You're always out there to look for something new, you know, for us to be busy with, because of whatever you have learned, okay, you will pass it to us to work on it lah. So I think
not arrowing.
Not arrowing, okay. Yeah, but what is if you are not, you know, doing all this like, you know, what do you find yourself doing like if you're not a teacher? Yeah.
Sitting in a coffee shop eating
watching laundry,
watching Man U lose. I mean, watching Man U play. Sorry.
Okay, bye. Two things. You rightfully mentioned. I love doing laundry. I do the laundry at home. I find it very therapeutic, very relaxing to see the washing machine, see the laundry spinning. I get into a bit of a hypnosis.
Fetish.
So that's it's a routine, and I've got a certain way of doing the laundry and all that. My family, my two kids, my wife, say I'm OCD at home. So, but anyway, that's something that I kind of love to do, and that's kind of to get me to relax lah. Yeah, talking about relax, the other thing that I enjoy is yes, just having pisang goreng and coffee, kopi o, and just relaxing and watching the days go by. So I think if I'm not teaching, thinking about teaching, thinking about
Thinking.
professional, thinking about being a professional. So these are the two things that I do, and I find ways to kind of de-stress, relax, and recharge by doing one of these things lah. Yeah.
I got an idea for you. Why not have Hanif laundromat with a cafe? So you can.
But you just told me that I.
Yeah, no, after 70. Kartik.
I think.
Okay, maybe last few questions lah. Maybe this or that. Okay,
Actually, sorry, I just wanted to ask.
Okay.
Because we haven't really. I mean, we made the jump from his SPE days to all the way until to PAM lah. In between, I was just wondering like whether we can talk about your days as a PE teacher. Because I think people might be wondering like, hey, what was Hanif? Wow, Hanif talks so much. What was he like? What was he like as a PE teacher?
As a team director, or is he a drill sergeant kind of thing, or PTI or what?
Okay, to just draw a quick timeline of my career in a way. So we spoke earlier about NS, right, and then being accepted to SPE. I was also lucky because at that point I was also playing rugby for the national team. So and there was a scheme then, national service, right? They interviewed some of us, and largely they are like national team players and all that. And for us to be seconded to MOE as an assistant teacher. So I actually spent a year of national service. Some say I siam and I king and all that, but true. I spent a year teaching in a secondary school. I was in Siglap Secondary.
Siglap Sec.
Yeah, and actually you were in Siglap as the MPCC
Cadet Inspector.
Cadet Inspectors.
Yes. So we always cross paths.
So that almost a year spent there made me believe that okay, this is the life that I want as a PE teacher. So, and then of course SPE, we spoke briefly about SPE, 4 years spent there, and my kind of foray into Olympic education and all that. My first school upon graduation, I was approached by RI. I was an alumni, and I was playing rugby for the national team. I was approached to go there and to teach and be a rugby coach. And I thought that okay, I love the sport. I love my school. It gave me a lot of very positive schooling experience and all that. It was an invitation not to be missed. So I was teaching at RI, teaching, coaching rugby, wonderful life and all that. And again, if you, on hindsight, right, that constructivism, that understanding human behavior, it gives me a dimension that with that kind of student profile, how can I engage them at that kind of a level of, I mean, the assumption is the RI boys, cognitively, they are capable. How can we engage them cognitively such that the PE lesson is a fulfilling one for them? I mean, this is before cognitive and metacognitive, and I thought that was something that we went there. And it was also during, that was the start of the GCA approach in Singapore. It was brought into the shores of Singapore, and RI was one of the pilot schools for GCA, and that was where we went. Moving forward, I decided to go back to MOE, posted to a school, and blessed to be given the opportunity to be posted to a school which is only about, I think it was a second year in operation. So it gives me a lot of flexibility together with a team of PE teachers there to kind of carve out what do we want from there. So one of the vision that we had there was Chenhua Secondary School. The vision that we had there is an OBS of the West. There wasn't OE in outdoor education in PE. Together with the team, we believe the values of outdoor education. So the team got together. I led the team. we wanted OE to be part of PE, but we don't want just OE as an experience, as an adventure. We want bigger than that. So again, constructivists come, we want to develop social emotional competency. So who is Hanif as a PE teacher in Senwa Secondary? While I was, after being a teacher for several years, I was a HOD of PE, CCA, aesthetics, character development, student leadership there. I thought that I could put together all that. Hanif as a teacher in Senwa Secondary School is Hanif who champions character development through the various learning experience. So again, that character, that constructivism come about. My career then brought me to be a school leader for a while. So after HOD, I was a VP in the school, Ganing Singh, for about 2 years in there. And it was at that point I was in a crossroad. Yeah. There's nothing against all the crossroad, all the career path in MOE. So I feel that MOE as a system is wonderful. Unlike maybe some other educational systems in the world, it places people at the right juncture, at the right path, right? So there's the leadership track, of which I was then a VP. There's also the specialist track to do research and write curriculum in HQ. Almost at it, kind of at its infancy at that point of time, the teaching track. So while I was VP, doing my VP kind of duties and all that, I felt a sense of I want to be connected to PE. I want to be connected to involving, guiding teachers and kind of unfinished business with PE that I felt, no, yeah. And I made a decision to went over to the teaching track. And there was an opportunity at PESTA for a lead teacher actually. Yeah, I went for the interview for the lead teacher, and the panel then felt that okay, Hanif, I received a call one day. Hanif, we've interviewed you. We're wondering, we might want to put you up for as a master teacher instead. Could you kind of redo your portfolio a little bit, and then we call you back for another interview with a different set of panel, and then we'll see how it goes. I wasn't ready, frankly, for that because I thought as a lead teacher, well, the lead teacher can be in school, and at that point of time, lead teacher in PESTA as well. That's what I can do to kind of help other PE teachers, that unfinished business that I mentioned. But the fact that to cut the story short in a way, interviewed as a master teacher, cleared the interview, appointed first master teacher in Singapore. Therein lies that responsibility. Being the first one, it's not just about the name, and I can put that master teacher at my signatory at the end of the email, but the master teacher stands for something. So the Hanif as a PE teacher, Hanif as a master teacher, I need to stand for something. Hence that wanting to, okay, what can I do? What else can I do? How can I help? Hence the PAM research and the cognitive kind of inquiry. Yeah. So that's the kind of a timeline that I can put across.
Illustrious in this. Yeah. Have any more questions? I think I have a lot more, to ask you about mentoring and things like that, maybe a part 2 is recorded for this one. Yeah. So maybe
you can talk to my agent.
No. Okay, perhaps one final rallying call for the fraternity. You mentioned just now about our students facing a VUCA world, our teachers as well. What is the advice or the clarion call that you wanna give to the fraternity? Yeah.
Some of us watching this or hearing this might have heard me saying, and I stand by that. A couple of years ago, when I kind of got some inspiration from some of the reading or some things that I watched, and I coined that and used that on several occasions. I'm going to use the same one, which is, would you like to be taught by you? And that's very deep to me. So as a teacher, we can come up with all kinds of innovative pedagogy. You can think of, wow, you want to do this, you want to do that. But all those are, it's good, but are we too teacher-centric with that? Have we thought about our students? So if you want to enact all those kind of pedagogy, if you are a student, would you like to be taught by you? And since I've used that kind of that phrase, right, it has kind of evolved into several other kind of manifestation. So in addition to would you like to be taught by you, would you learn from you? Because teaching does not equate to learning, right? So the teaching episode will only be a success if students learn, when students learn, right? So would you learn from you, right? If you're a student, would you learn from you? And then I've kind of changed that in a way to, would you like to be mentored by you? So you mentioned mentoring, and of course, I think with PESTA and the kind of work that we do with the leaders, the KPs and all that, I think you've also kind of morphed it to, would you like to be led by you? And we can kind of break it up and starting from that one main question, right? To give meaning to others. Would you like to be led by you? Can also be changed to, would you lead yourself? So there are so many ways of kind of unpacking that. Yeah. So so my call is, would you like to be taught by you? And you have to make your own meaning from there, applying in whatever facets of your professional life.
Thank you so much, Hanif. Thank you so much, Hanif. And for all of you out there, we hope you are inspired, okay, by his sharing. Definitely, the time does not give justice to the vast experience that he has. Perhaps there is going to be a part 2.
Yeah, if
for
you want
Hanif.
a part 2, then you
yes,
can,
yeah. Please
tell
us what you think. Do you want more of Hanif? Which part you want more of? And we can see where we can fit in another of Hanif session. All right, Karthik?
Yeah, okay. I hope you can give us more comments, give us more feedback on this kind of sharing platform, and then so that we can also cater to some of your needs and your wants.
Yes. And do tell us who next do you want to be seated in these seats.
Yes.
All right. Okay, it could be anyone, past, present, future, and yes, we will be happy to oblige. Okay, we have this series at least for once a month if we can. But again, do give us a feedback and your suggestions. All right. Till then, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Hanif. Thank you so much.
Thank you.